All right, friends, welcome to this special edition of the Serrano Brothers podcast. This is going to be like the shortest one that we do. All right, Joshy, we have officially finished recording and interviewing and chatting with all of the bishop pre-nominees. How do you think it went?
I'm really excited. I think it went really well. I think the questions we asked were fair. I think they were on point, and maybe we should talk a little bit about the questions that we asked. So the first question that we asked is where they're serving, their conference. Then we go into what is a favorite childhood memory, either inside or outside of the church. And we thought that would be a really interesting way to begin, instead of just saying, tell us about your childhood, tell us about where you grew up. We then went into the next question was if they had any hobbies.
Oh, hobbies, right?
Hobbies, right? And then we started asking, a little more deeper, like what are their spiritual disciplines that they practice, or spiritual, so what is it, spiritual practices that they cling to?
Right. And for me, I think those 4 questions were a way to just kind of get the ball rolling. They're kind of softball questions,
right?
In that they're telling all about themselves, and then we kind of transition it into really business, right? Which is like, what is the function of the synod?
Right.
And then we, after that, talk about, is it a strategic plan?
Well, we get into a question about like, how would they go about creating a strategic plan for the synod? Mm-hmm. And then we ask them, then after that, we read each of their paperwork, and depending on what they wrote, we asked a specific question from each candidate's paperwork to give them an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into their answers,
into something specific that each person wrote on their paperwork. And
right.
then they all kind of said the same thing on their paperwork in regards to what the synod needs in that
we provide more connection, right?
More connection, that's right.
Right.
That
the synod needs to provide more connection, both between synod office and individual congregations.
And so how are they going to do that? As
specifically.
Yeah. And then what kind of gifts do they feel that their synod staff is going to need in order to complement their own gifts, right? Because and that's kind of our question around, like, okay, how are you going to buttress your own gifts, but also what you're not really good at, with people who are better at those things than you, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then we talked about conflict. Like, what is the style of the bishop's conflict resolution, right?
Right.
And then the last 2 questions were really, I wanted to see what their thought process was coming into the podcast. So we asked them, what do you think we should have asked you? Or what were you hoping we'd ask you? And then we ended it all with just kind of, tell us about yourself as related to bishop.
Yeah.
And then, like we do on anytime we interview somebody, we kind of do our lightning round of all of those questions, which we'll do with anybody we interview, because I like those questions. I'm excited about this.
Me too.
The bishop's election is 2 weeks away. And because this is going out on Friday, all of them are going to drop tomorrow morning at between 6 a.m. and 6:09 a.m. So all of them are going to drop. We're dropping them in the order that they were done. And so you will see an order that they were the order that we were able to make appointments with them to be on the podcast. And so that's how we're dropping them.
So there is no favoritism. There is no like intentional, it's random, really. And it really depended on people's schedules.
People's availability. Absolutely.
Right, availability.
And so my hope is that you all will listen to all of the podcast. You will, after you listen to a couple, you'll get, just like we said, the structure and order. And so if there's a question you want to hear, you could go to different podcasts and just like kind of look for that question. But I hope that you all will find this as meaningful as Josh and I did in doing this little project of ours.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'm really hoping that the people who are going to be at Synod Assembly will listen to these podcasts, but also prayerfully look at each of the write-ups that the pre-nominees did, and prayerfully discern who they believe should be the next bishop.
Indeed. You can find all of these on the web at serranobrothers.net. You can find them on Apple Podcast. You can look for Serrano Brothers Podcast on the Apple Podcast app. And you can also find them on YouTube if you look up Serrano Brothers Podcast. We hope you join us.
Peace.